Hey, this is Katie at Art Country Store. I'm here with my friend Megan Parr. She is the Ellis County Extension Agent, and she is responsible for the 4-H program. And she's here today to talk to us about being winter ready with your livestock show projects. Megan, we're glad to have you. Thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for having me. Yes, so we had our first little snap of cold weather last week, and while it has warmed up the last couple of days, we've got another round on the way, along with another probably couple rounds of rain, I would suspect. And so to make sure that your livestock projects are well taken care of, we just had some tips and tricks for you to utilize this winter to make sure that your animals stay healthy and happy with all the cold snaps that we have. So let's dive in.
Sheep and goats, big thing for them is to keep them covered up with socks and or blankets. The colder it gets, obviously, you want more layers, kind of like humans.
I'd say a good rule of thumb for your sheep and goats is if you feel like when you walk out of the house you need a jacket, they probably need a jacket on too. And if you feel like you need more than one layer, they're probably going to need more than one layer. What I like to tell my kids is if it drops below 60 degrees, for sure they need the blankets on all the time. Above 60 degrees, they probably just need the one blanket on. But make sure that they are covered and not too hot, but definitely not cold at all.
Okay, something else you can do is when it gets extremely cold, like the last few nights we've dipped down into the 30s, 20s around here, you can use a heat lamp with a heat lamp bulb. You just need to be careful in how close you actually place that to the animal. And that can apply to sheep, goats, pigs,
rabbits, chickens, any of those things. A good tip to go with your heat lamps is to make sure that they're up high enough that those animals aren't going to get to them, but not so high that they don't put any heat on that animal. But also make sure that you check your cords. You don't want to wrap your cords around fence or anything like that. You want to make sure that they're looped and hung up. That way you don't have the potential for any hazardous fires or anything like that.
Yeah, and you can always zip tie those so that the animals are not chewing on those cords because they like to chew.
Absolutely.
Something else we need to talk about with some of the moisture that we've had lately is, especially with the sheep, ringworm and fungus can be a real problem underneath these socks and blankets. So even with it being cold, you need to take those socks and blankets off and spot check your animal and make sure that you don't have any ringworm or other fungus developing. If you do, there's several products out on the market that can help get ahead of that. And the other problem that you see with some of this moisture is foot rot. So you want to find somebody to teach you how to trim hooves if you don't know how to do it.
Yep. So when they're standing on the wet ground, even if they're under cover or whatever, sometimes we get moisture inside our barns and stuff. And so you want to make sure that their hooves stay trimmed back. It's like you cutting your toenails all the time. You probably need to cut them about once or twice a month. And so you need to do the same thing for your sheep and goats and clip those hooves back once or twice a month. Hitting them with a little bit of this is thrush relief after you clip those toenails. After you clip those hooves, you clip your toenails, clip your sheep and goats' hooves. Hit them with a little bit of this just to prevent some thrush. Once they get thrush, it's really hard to get rid of, and they can go down pretty quick with that. The other thing I would suggest with the cold weather, they're going to have the blankets on them, so pull those blankets off while they're eating, spray them down with the fungicide, or if they've got ringworm, that's a good time to treat them for that as well. And that's a good time to kind of check them over and make sure that they don't have anything on them when they're eating. And then you can put the blankets back on them and stick them back in the pen. The other thing I would suggest is to not put any water on them. We're wet enough right now. We don't really need to add to that situation. So keeping them as dry as you can. Definitely don't wash them. And if you wash them, make sure you get a dryer out there and dry them really, really well. I know that becomes a problem with our leg hair on our lambs. And so having some sort of leg cover like the leg wraps or some vet wrap to make sure that those legs stay clean all the time. You can also brush them out once or twice a week and get all the debris out of them and then wrap them back up. But doing that will really go a long way to helping your sheep and goats stay ready and then stay clean as well. If you do have to wash them, use a waterless shampoo. That way you don't have to get them under the water, and you don't really have to get them wet and cold and that sort of stuff.
Right. A little bit about pigs. They have cold weather issues too, even though they don't get the cute little blankets and socks. But they need some warmth and love too.
Yep. So this right here is going to be a big key. I would say making sure that your pens stay dry and clean all the time. If your hogs are on concrete, which most of our school barns have hogs that are on concrete, I would make sure that you keep your pens clean. Swap out those shavings. Add some extra shavings in there to make sure that they have plenty of area to be warm in. Also, again, just like we don't want to get those sheep and goats wet all the time, if your barn is not climate controlled, you for sure don't want to get those hogs wet either. They get water in their ears, or they can be cold just like you get cold. So I know we have problems with hogs rolling around in their poop, or if they're on dirt, they roll around in the dirt. So that's where these brushes come in. If you take one of these, this is a good sturdy, stiff rice root brush. Every single day, you just take this brush and you just brush the snot out of them. It's going to look like, especially if they're white hog, it's going to look like it is snowing pig skin everywhere. Yes. But what this does is it exfoliates every day, and it lets those natural oils kind of come out and keep those hogs clean and keep their skin conditioned. If you do need to put a conditioner on them, maybe once or twice a week is good. You can use some of the Revive or Sudden Impact or things like that. Would be good things to use as well.
Nothing super heavy.
Yeah, definitely not anything super heavy. So with the freezing weather and stuff, water becomes really important. We know that water is one of the biggest things that our animals need every day, along with their feed. So make sure, if you're eating today, your animal better eat today. If you ate 3 times a day, your animal better have all their meals too. So make sure that you get that taken care of.
And clean, fresh water.
Yep, clean, fresh water. So with our sheep and goats, we want to have our buckets out there. Just dumping the water out is not always an effective tool, but make sure that you get in there and you scrub out the inside, because algae can build up on there, and you want to make sure, even though it's not hot anymore, right, it doesn't grow quite as fast, but it still grows. And so you want to make sure you get in there and scrub that out really good.
So if it's real slimy, you can...
Yeah. And then, of course, if it's freezing, make sure you break that ice up so that your animals have access to water. Something that you could do as well is get a little water heater and stick down in there, and then that keeps their water at a nice, pleasant temperature. We have some pig nipples over there. Make sure that your water for your pig is well maintained. Sometimes those have a tendency to break a seal, or the little push part in the middle, the valve. Yep. Thanks for that. Can get broken or get loose or whatever. So make sure that you have those ready to go. They're replaced. They're good. They're clean, and that they're not leaking anywhere, because a leaky nipple means that we're going to have water piling up underneath it, and then that creates a much larger issue. So just kind of making sure you do some of those little things. Another kind of good rule of thumb, if we're all livestock, is to maintain their gut health. There's lots of really good products out there to help with that. Probios is one. We have that right there for some of those small stock. Purina just came out with some new ones.
Yep.
So make sure that they have some good gut health going. Most animals are just like people. Everything that controls the sickness and the health and stuff starts in our guts. And so it's going to be the same for our animals. And so making sure we maintain that good gut health is going to be really important. Probios is one you give once a week, and you just go on with that. So.
Yep.
Cattle, we're in prime weather for the cattle right now, especially if you got cattle headed to Fort Worth.
Hair
this
shows.
Is good hair growing weather. But still, we want to make sure that we keep those animals healthy. Still check the water, make sure the water is not frozen. Maybe put out a little extra hay for them, and then make sure that they have somewhere to get in out of those elements for sure every night.
Yeah, they can handle the cold. They just can't handle the wind as much as the cold. So a windbreak is super helpful.
Yep. And especially with those calves, if you start rinsing and working hair and that sort of stuff like we should be doing every so often, every week, make sure that you dry them completely and that we don't leave any wet spots, especially as their hair gets longer and thicker. It's easy to say the surface is dry, but make sure you get real good in there with the hair and make sure that that's dry as well.
All right. Can you think of anything else?
I don't have anything else. I think that you could stop by here by Art Country Store and get stocked up on all of these. I will tell you, don't wait till the last second to do this. You know, this cold weather comes in at the drop of a hat, and sometimes when we don't always think forward on these things, there gets to be a good run on these products, and then we get out of them real fast. And so go stock up now so that you're prepared when that next cold front hit. Because I think when I checked the weather this morning, it's coming back in on Sunday. So. Yep. Make sure that
well,
you're
and we're
prepared
just in November. We've still got to get through February and March.
I was thinking this morning we're about 60 days out from Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And a little over 60 days. And, now is the time we're in the final countdown, especially those of you who are really expecting to go make a splash at Fort Worth. You know, you don't want to have an animal go down from sickness right now. It's too hard to get over it.
Yep.
And then
get them back together.
Yep. So.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and visiting with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Again, if you need anything, call or come by Art here in Waxahachie or Midlothian, or you can also call Megan out at the extension office. We'll link her into this video. That way you can chase her down with any questions you might have. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.